right, Thaddeus Wendt here with Beyond the Bar. In today's episode, this is episode number 3. We're really excited about that. It's a milestone for us. But we're going to be talking today about a common misconception, which is that a minor crash isn't a big deal. From adrenaline masking pain to insurance company traps and TikTok myths, we'll unpack the real cost of brushing off injuries and why what you don't do after a crash can cost you more than you think. Then we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about 2 major stories in the headlines. The first one is the legal fallout from P Diddy, the P Diddy trial, which is now in jury deliberations. And then we're going to cover a little bit. I was going to take it out, but we're going to keep it in, some debate over hard fouls leveled at Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. We are also going to just briefly touch on just some common sense safety considerations when it comes to the 4th of July, fireworks. And then in Utah, we have that crazy Pie and Beer Day, or it's actually Pioneer Day, where you can also shoot off fireworks. So just with the drought going on, and then we want to make sure everybody goes home with 10 fingers instead of 9. We'll talk a little bit about that. Joining me today to help me with these discussions, I've got Miles Hicks, who is the client relationship manager at Feller & Wendt. So if it's rare that you ever have an issue if you're one of our clients, but if you do, he's the guy that's going to fix it. And then also joining us is Randon, and I always say your name wrong, but it's Random.
You got it.
Gosh, see, I've been practicing that. Okay, I got it. And Randon is a good friend and also our marketing manager. He not only helps us with the podcast, but everything that we do at Feller & Wendt, all of our media and marketing content. So they're going to be here. They're great guys, dads, part of our local community. So I'm excited to get their feedback about everything from the legal considerations and then all the other stuff that we talked about. So let's jump into it. Minor accidents. And we don't even like to call them accidents at Feller & Wendt. We like to call them collisions. Because we don't believe that there are actually accidents. We have to use that term for marketing purposes because it's the common vernacular out there. But we don't think that any of these collisions out there or premises liability issues or dog bites, those aren't really accidents. Those are conscious decision. They're results of somebody's conscious decision. And it's not that they intended to hurt anybody when they do that, but a mom intended to actually take her eyes off the road and look back at her kid, and that distracted her. A teenager consciously decided to text while driving. I mean, these are all things that, yes, the accident happened, but it wasn't accidental. That was a result of a conscious decision. But when you're talking about these minor collisions, there can be major consequences. So we're going to spend just a couple minutes talking about this, but and I want to bring you guys in on this too. Have either of you been involved in any kind of collision, and specifically like a minor collision? I don't know the answer to that. But go ahead.
I've been twice.
Okay.
Twice.
All right.
Fortunately, both times were not my fault.
Okay.
And oddly enough, were both less than like a half a mile from where I lived.
Really? You know the stats on that? You know
they're crazy. I've read that something like 80% of all collisions happen within 5 miles of where you currently live. And not only that, like that chunk, something like 70% of that chunk is all within like 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I was going to say the stats I remember saying, and don't quote me on this, was like 80% of collisions happen within 2 miles of your...
Yeah, it's insane.
It's nuts. If you think about it, it kind of makes sense. I mean, that's the majority of where you're driving is going to be.
Right. Well, and that's where
to and from.
You talked about earlier, people like the conscious decision to do certain things. Most of the time, it's because everyone feels comfortable in that area and they don't think to stop all the time. And, to stop. I've driven through this thing like 8,000 times. I know.
Right.
Or, you feel comfortable because you know where you are. So you think you can take your eyes off the road and text and whatever the case may be.
Or you're like leaving your house and you're, oh crap, forgot to send that message, or oh, I need to let them know like we're leaving the house, or whatever it might be.
You got to check to make sure the garage door is closed.
Yeah.
You guys have the I know you don't have a garage door yet. It's
Not
coming.
yet.
It's coming.
Not yet.
But I've got those things where I can check in there, and I've got to be honest. I try not to look at my phone. That is one thing. Now that you say that, I'm going to have to check myself. I do check that. I'm like, oh, did I close the garage door? And I wait for that update to come in. I really shouldn't even be looking at that. So,
Well, and even turning like your music on. That's my number one problem. Like I'm like, oh,
yep,
make sure Bluetooth is on.
right, exactly. You guys ever done that, like the autopilot thing too? I mean, I think of that in the 2 miles. Like there's some times where I like get to my destination. I was like, here I'll be in 7.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably drove safely, but I'm just like on autopilot.
Yeah. Just that muscle memory.
Yeah. I think that all contributes. How about you? You've been involved in a collision at all?
Fortunately not. I mean,
Weak. Come on, get out there. Drive faster.
no. I seriously, like, I'm extremely fortunate. I've never been in one. However, I did study engineering for 3 years in college, and so lots of physics classes, lots of math, right? Yeah. And the physics that goes into an accident, and even just 25 miles an hour, just the impact from a vehicle going 25 miles an hour is huge. Yeah. And so even though I haven't necessarily been in one, being able to understand it from more of a mathematics perspective, and the toll that it takes on your body and the vehicle and other things that are inside that vehicle, it's really impressive and intimidating if you really think about it and let it sink in.
Yeah, if you do it. I just did a training on this earlier today where I was talking about some of the stuff, like none of this stuff is accidents and that kind of stuff. But man, when you really think about the forces that are involved, it kind of makes us a little crazy to get in our cars and get on the road. And that's what I was training on today. I was talking about the social contract that we have when we drive. We talk a lot at Feller and Wendt about system failures. We build our cases around system failures. A lot of people are like, well, what's the system failure when somebody wasn't paying attention and rear-ended somebody else? And for us, the system failure is that social contract that was broken. And if you don't send a signal to folks and say, hey, if you break this social contract, there's going to be a consequence, well, then conduct rewarded is conduct repeated, right? And so that's kind of where we believe that we come in with our value driver, not only just for bringing justice to our clients and helping them out with their injuries, but making our community safer kind of through that. And so that all ties into these minor accidents. And I don't want to stray too far from that. You were involved in two. Mm-hmm. Did you get injured?
Truth be told, it was a long time ago. And I don't remember it being anything really substantial. Truth be told, a lot of it was just the emotional and like psychological toll of everything. One of which I was 16, and my dad's gonna kill me, and my dad's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me, and so I don't even like everything at that point was just kind of a blur because of so much that's going on. And the second one I know for sure, I wasn't injured at all. It wasn't a serious accident, or excuse me, a serious collision, I should put, but it was, again, just real close to home. Just thought in that muscle memory, right? Just going where I was going. I knew exactly where I was going, what I was doing, and it just happened real quick, like in a flash. Both times, actually, someone had pulled out in front of me. I was headed basically west down the street where I was living, and both times someone at a cross intersection either got impatient, didn't want to wait for me to continue it on, and just tried to beat me across the street, whatever the case is, and T-bone both of them. So,
yeah. Did you file claims? Yes, like insurance claims or anything?
I don't. Again, I was really young, and I don't recall actually filing claims. No, that's a lie. One of them did. There was a small claim, and that's how the money I was able to get back to help fix my vehicle.
Gotcha. Did you feel injured at either one of those collisions? Like at the scene? Do you remember? I know it seems like it was a long time ago and you're a pretty old guy. What are you, 70, 72?
Yeah,
right
well, 75 also.
now? 75. You look great.
It feels like, man, it feels like,
good.
75. No, I don't. Again, I think there was so much like adrenaline at the time when it happened that sometimes it's hard to even kind of think straight. I mean, what I do, what just happened, right? Especially if they happen that quick. I was very fortunate to be very active and athletic and things like that, and so I didn't think anything of it. Who knows? Maybe my back pain now is a result of never doing anything from it, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting that you mentioned that, because like one of the common misconceptions out there is that, people get involved in these minor collisions, whatever, that category is. And one of the most common things that we deal with here is clients telling us that, they felt fine, but now they don't, and they're worried that people won't believe them or the insurance won't believe them. And I think that's pretty I have friends and folks that even work that I know their family members have been involved in collisions, and it's kind of like once you get into a collision, everybody goes into defense mode, and they just don't want anybody to be hurt. They don't even want to be hurt.
Yeah.
And then their body right then, because of adrenaline, is oftentimes telling them they're not hurt.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because it's like, at my age, at 75, right? I know for sure I do certain things, and as you get older, man, I'm going to feel this tomorrow. And so I could see the younger, generation, younger kids, late teens and things like that, early 20s, getting in a collision like that and not really thinking much about it. But as you get older, hopefully you pay enough attention to your body that even though you think, oh gosh, I'm not like bleeding or there's nothing going on right now, but that something can easily, within 24 hours, stiffness and aches and pains can set in.
Right. Well, and this is, the point I really want to drive home to kind of combat some of the misinformation out there. Just because you felt fine at the scene, that doesn't mean you're injury free. Totally. And to your point, even though we're making fun of you being 75 because you're not, how old are you?
Just turned 42.
42. Got to make sure that's clear for people not watching and just hearing this, so they know we're just messing with you. But yeah, like it could be like, I know you're being a little bit facetious about it, but it could be that your back pain that you have now, it might be related to that. And you don't know because you probably did go get checked out, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things is if I could encourage anybody, and Randon, back to your point with, your schooling and your education with physics, there's these things, delta V's. You probably know more about that than I do, that are basically a measurement of the forces that go into the moving objects when two masses collide, right? And they can have subsections of those masses. And so when you have even a small fender bender, that's a pretty large mass of just about any vehicle hitting into another mass. And if that vehicle is fully stopped, what are the only moving objects in that second vehicle? It's the people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if they're restrained by seatbelts or not, they're still going to absorb all that force. So I tell folks a lot of times it's similar to, what would you rather have? Would you rather have somebody on a bicycle run into you at 15 miles per hour? Now, neither one of these choices is going to be ideal, but which one would you rather have? Somebody on a bicycle running into you at 15 miles per hour, or a massive dump truck fully loaded running into you at 2 miles per hour?
I'll take the bicycle.
Yeah, probably.
You would go with the bicycle all day long. Like it doesn't matter how amazingly strong you are. You're not going to be able to withstand that mass, that force that hits into you even at slow speeds. So similarly, you have that here with even minor impacts, what we would consider, minor accidents. Just make sure you're not injury free. That's what I tell our viewers and our listeners is go get checked out, because even if you are, maybe you're lucky and you don't have any injury, now you've got a clean bill of health. Mm-hmm. And so while we're not looking to make any fictitious claims, that's great. We're glad that you're healthy, and we're just going to let you know there's nothing we can do to help you out on the bodily injury side. But you've really set yourself up for success if in the event that you're in some sort of future event, because now you can go back and say, hey, look, I've got this clean bill of health. Now, for you, for instance, if you get into a collision now, it's really unlikely somebody's going to go back 60 years on you.
Right.
But if it was a closer in time, say you had a collision 2 years ago, you didn't get it checked out, then you get in a collision near your house again, and this time you do have injuries.
Yep.
Well, the insurance company is going to try to blame at least part of your injuries on that first accident, and you never were evaluated, you never were treated, so you don't really have a way to fight that.
Yeah, you got to have something to combat, right? And just know like a start and an end, and be able to have something that shows that, hey, yeah, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever the time frame is when this accident happens. I was healthy, and I'd actually have documentation to prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Good. The other thing too is I see a lot of folks. I don't want to divulge too much and violate attorney-client confidentiality, but I've even had a friend that did this where they were involved in a motor vehicle collision, posted some selfies about it. Have you guys seen that? Mm-hmm. Social media and stuff.
I've seen people especially younger generations, you just think they have to post everything on social media, every event in their life. And that's just bizarre to me.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And why? Like, Brandon, what do you think? I mean, why is that not a great idea?
Well, to go back to the first part, what's our natural tendency these days? We want to document everything through our phones, right?
Right.
Well, what's the next natural step in that process? It goes on social media.
Right.
But to answer your question about posting it, at least in my opinion, I feel like that might be dangerous because you aren't allowing the proper authorities to take action first. But then also, I mean, maybe it could open it up to, things being pointed out that could hurt your case.
Yeah.
And that you really didn't notice or intend to include. So,
right.
Well, my first thought.
No, and I think that's spot on. And I think the disconnect is, again, it's a minor collision. You've got the adrenaline going. You're worried dad's going to kick your butt. Whatever it is, you're thinking about all sorts of other. You're trying to make sure you're okay. The other people are okay. You're being a decent human being, and you don't really feel any pain yet. And you might not, for a couple of days, right? But what you're doing is you're posting all this material that shows that you're okay and you're walking around. And there's a bit of a disconnect, and the insurance companies know this, between that and what you might feel like 2 days later, 3 days later. I've heard of people 4 or 5 days later that all of a sudden can't get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
But what you've done is you've kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit because you've just loaded up all this visual evidence that's contrary. Now, we can get experts and we can overcome that, but it's just an unnecessary thing for us to overcome if you don't post it. And so I would just suggest that before you post anything about any crash, it's not a bad idea what you were talking about, Randon, to go out and get the evidence with your phone. Mm-hmm. Great. If you feel like you can do that and you're not going to hurt yourself further, go do that. That's really important, very helpful. Just don't post it until you've talked to an attorney. Most of them are going to say don't post it at all until your case has been concluded. But let your attorney look at it first, especially if you feel like you've got to live your crash out on social media.
Well, I think there's also a huge risk too, especially when you're in a collision with somebody else, and if things happen to progress past a point that we want it to, and there is litigation or something that happens, right? What you then run the risk is whatever pictures, video you have of this other person, potentially in these picture videos. I feel like, and I'm obviously not an attorney, but you run the risk of privacy violations and things like that too, of them already being exposed and to something they weren't open to. Mm-hmm. All right, and I just whether it be like license plates or other identifying information, because I feel like that's kind of the big thing too, that especially the younger generation was raised with the internet and raised with social media has gotten this real nasty habit of feeling like they can say anything without any real repercussion. And the first thing they're going to do is be like, oh, this idiot, man, doesn't know how to drive. And they, who knows what risk you run when you start running your mouth about, aside from like the pictures and videos you post, whatever you think people might want to say about this other person, the other driver.
Well, and I love that you brought that up because sometimes, heat of the moment, you're expressing some opinions that you might either regret later on or you don't even you don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's now locked in stone. So it's creating all these unnecessary hurdles that, we wouldn't have to jump over if you just pause for a second, don't post it all out there. To give you guys, I was mentioning my friend, where it really, I wanted to highlight kind of a case where this played out a little bit. But so my friend, we're literally in depositions. I've prepped him already. I've asked, I've walked through everything. In fact, it wasn't me. I did some of the prep with him, but it was Brian Hansen that did the deposition. And Brian came out and he was like, oh my gosh, so it was a disaster. And the reason it was a disaster, my friend, my very good friend, we had asked him to go kind of through a timeline of prior injuries, prior car collisions, all this kind of stuff. He forgot to tell us about one. But guess what didn't forget?
The internet.
Social media.
Yep.
The internet had it, and the defense had done their due diligence and pulled down everything. Now, we thought we had looked at everything too. Again, we had talked specifically to our client, and it was an honest mistake. It wasn't like my friend's been in so many collisions, but it was a fairly minor one. He forgot about it. I don't even think he even filed any claims on it, which is why it was kind of off the radar for everybody. But it was on social media. And again, what's insurance can say is, hey, that one could have caused you injuries too. They know that minor injuries or minor collisions can cause some pretty significant injuries. And he did have some pretty significant injuries that he was dealing with. So anyway, it was a bump in the road. That one was a bigger bump in the road because they found out about it before we did. But again, easily avoidable if you're not posting these things on social media.
Yep.
Talked a little bit about how insurance companies weaponizes this stuff. And also, I want to talk a little bit about that's how they weaponize social media, but they also like to weaponize gaps in treatment. And so like where you were talking about where you didn't feel bad, again, our advice to everybody that's listening, watching, you get into a car collision, even if you're feeling okay, go get evaluated. All right. And it's an investment in your well-being now and also down the road. But the reason for that too is if 5 days later you wake up and you can't get out of bed, insurance adjusters like to kind of we call it weaponize. It's probably a little bit too serious of a term, but they like to say, hey, look, if you were really hurt, you would have gone and seen somebody day 1, day 2, day 3. Like, why'd you wait 5 days? And you may have a valid reason. Maybe you're afraid of the expenses of it. You don't have time. You've got kids, whatever it might be, but it doesn't matter. They're going to use that against you because what the common juror says is, look, if you're really not feeling well, you go get treatment. And so those gaps in treatment, we call them, can be really debilitating. So again, one more reason why don't post anything, don't say anything about, talk to an attorney first, but go get evaluated, even if you're feeling okay, especially with your kids. Even if your kids are telling you, if they're in the car with you, go get everybody evaluated. So you make sure you either know what's going on or you get that clean bill of health. And then the last thing I did want to talk about is just soft tissue injuries itself. And Miles, you mentioned this a little bit. Those are weird injuries because people can't tell. Like, I didn't know your back is hurting. Is it hurting right now?
No, not right now.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I couldn't tell one way or the other. But that's the problem with soft tissue injuries is that you can't tell if somebody's actually in pain. You can't tell if they're faking, right? If you have a broken bone, you got a cast on there, I can tell. But soft tissue injuries are difficult. And that's why, again, the insurance company is able to really weaponize social media, gaps in treatment, because soft tissue injuries are very hard to kind of quantify. Any other comments you guys want to make on that stuff?
No, it's legit. I can tell you the soft tissue stuff is, and those are some of the things that can actually be the most painful because they're not visibly noticeable. And like, I remember just thinking, oh gosh, I slept on my neck wrong or something. And, and eventually finally went to a chiropractor.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, you got 2 ribs that are out, man. Like, we got to get you. And I'm like, how in the hell, how do I have 2 ribs out? And I would not, but it was so painful. My whole shoulder started to just, but then, you've been getting that
domestic violence at home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the wife, she's brutal. No, I think it actually ended up being my daughter, my 5-year-old. But this happened a couple years ago, but I was just pitching in to try and be a good dad and help out at home and hold the baby more and things like that. And it just was an adjustment to start carrying all this different weight differently than I was used to. Like those things, they can fly under the radar and they can cause a lot of pain. And like I said, no one can really visually see them, but get it checked out, get a professional, take a look at it and tell you what's going on.
For sure. Yep. And again, you just don't know. You know, get evaluated because you don't know when you have a minor incident that if left untreated, there's a lot of research on that too. Like a whiplash, for instance, you could have a low-level whiplash, but it goes untreated and it just over time becomes worse and worse. It becomes a massive problem. And again, easily avoidable if you just go in and get evaluated.
So I was actually, not taking up too much time, but that made me think earlier. I was going to mention it without derailing us too much. But as we talk about the force of impact from like vehicles and stuff like that, another segment you guys should probably do down the road is talk about not only like the force of impact for vehicles, but how much actual force it takes to cause certain type of injuries.
Yeah.
Right. You would be blown away at how easily ribs, vertebrae, all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
With very little actual force that is involved.
Yeah.
So
that's a great idea. We've got a whole bunch of experts and stuff that we rely on. So yeah, we'll have to put that on the list and bring them in. Let's pivot to something. I was going to say a little bit more fun, but that's probably inappropriate. I wanted to talk about the P Diddy trial. It's in the second full day of deliberations. I mean, have you guys followed this at all? I haven't followed it a ton.
I'm sure Brandon is probably
he's in the huge
P Diddy fan, right?
Yep. We're a law firm, so I want to talk a little bit about this just from the legal side. But so P Diddy didn't. My understanding is he didn't testify. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
What do you think was going on there? I literally don't know. Speculate.
If I had to guess or speculate, I just don't see him as a person who probably knows when to keep his mouth shut. He would probably incriminate himself like 10 times worse than what it already is. Yes, he'd want to brag about how cool his parties have been. I just don't.
I agree. I think he totally thinks his lifestyle is like permissible. The way he treats women is permissible, and I think the defense attorneys were like,
he probably still thinks he's going to get away with it. He'll probably still think he's headed home soon.
Yeah.
Well, after what I don't know which girlfriend, but it sounds like the girlfriend at the time of when he was like going through like getting caught and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like he could have cared less about anybody else because she was making requests and he was just like, no, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so
I think there is a little bit on record too. I think there's even a little bit of like domestic violence against her at the time because she was also trying to kind of like, hey, maybe we should slow the roll here a little bit on these parties, whatever. And I think he got a little violent with her.
It certainly sounds like that. I mean, I think it's disturbing. And again, I mean, I do think that the defense attorneys were probably like, man, this guy just is going to incriminate himself even further. Like it's already bad and no need to make it worse. I did want to talk a little bit too. So yeah, we've got P Diddy doesn't testify. Then you've got the jury deliberating. And let me just kind of quote to you, and Tom, maybe when you're going through this, you could even drop in the actual judge, but the quote from the judge. But the quote is, there's a juror note. One of the foreperson comes in, sends a note to the judge that says, concern that juror number 25 cannot follow your honor's instruction. And then the judge, Arun Submarinian is, I think, the name. Submarinian. That's a crazy, almost like a naval last name there. Reminded the panel of its duty and instructed them to keep deliberating and follow his legal directions. And then there was another juror question. The jurors asked if giving drugs to someone who asks for them qualifies as distribution. And the judge then clarified that distribution means any actual or attempted transfer. It does not require a sale. So these jury questions, I've been in, I've run trials before, gotten some jury, questions like that, and you're trying to like psychologically analyze like what's going on, but just like as lay people, like what do you think? What do you think that means? Does it signal anything about what's going to happen to Mr. P Diddy?
I read these things. I'm like, man, we will never know like what truly went on at these parties. I think everyone can speculate, but imagine whatever conversation is happening in this courtroom that even leads someone to think to themselves like, well, if they ask for the drugs, is it really like distribution, right? Like, I just like, I can't even, I don't think we're ever really going to know how crazy and how to control some of the stuff was that was going on.
Yeah. Brandon, what do you think?
Sounds like he's pretty toast. Because
I think so.
if these are the questions that are surfacing, it sounds like they're pretty convinced that the evidence is supporting that he is indeed guilty, that he did some really dumb and inappropriate things. And now they're just trying to figure out what was the line, like how bad was it? Yeah. So,
well, what's he up? What's he up against right now? I think life, right?
Yeah.
Versus what? 50 years to life. You know, I mean, it doesn't sound like if they find him guilty, does any time at all. It doesn't sound like, at least we're hoping not, a slap on the hands. I mean, he's gonna. That's where I just like, to me, I also think like it's crazy that we're gonna assign someone 50 to life, and he's already like 60 something, right? Like there's 50 is, he's certainly gonna die in there.
Yeah, you would think so. I guess you never know with modern medicine. All of a sudden, maybe we jump up to 200 years or something, and then he's out doing his parties again. All right, this question isn't on here. You guys don't know this. I was a little hesitant to reveal
surprise
this.
Questions.
My gaming name is T Diddy.
Oh dear.
And my brothers brought that to my attention and said, "Hey, you might want to consider changing that." And I said, "Hell no. I was T Diddy before he was P Diddy." So that's messed up, but I also worry about the connotation. So what do you guys think? Should I change it or not?
Was T Diddy short for Tough Daddy?
No, it's actually it's one of my wife's good friends, and she actually was helping me study for the bar, and I don't know why. Who's the guy with the clock? The comedian kind of personality.
Is it
Flava
Flav. Yeah. So we just were kind of joking around, and I don't remember what weird nickname I came up, and we would shout out Flava Flav, and then call each other different names. She just kept calling me T Diddy.
Out of curiosity, we don't have to go into a ton of detail, but what games do you play?
Oh, I used to play a ton of Hearthstone, and I've stopped so I can spend more time with my kids.
I feel like
Zelda is my number one.
So I don't think anyone's gonna like see T Diddy and then see you playing like racking up 150 hours or whatever on like Zelda and be like, that's probably a reference to P Diddy. I don't think they're gonna think that. Now if you were playing like Grand Theft Auto, and it's like T Diddy, you might get some eyebrows raised.
Yeah.
But,
So. That's I was just like, gosh, guys, why did you put that in my head? Now I'm worried about it. So
not the way after. I mean,
that's the exact reference I was gonna make. Is if you were in the context of Grand Theft Auto, then you probably want to change that.
Yeah.
So that being said, my gaming handle is that one guy we hate. Should I change mine? I don't like.
It's literally
That's all one word. Yeah, that one guy we hate. And you know why? I love it because anytime I play with my boys and we play like Fortnite and stuff like that, and it's always like, you got killed by somebody, and then it's like, I got killed by that one guy we hate, and it's like it's just like the whole thing flows. So
that's pretty good. Yeah. That reminds me of my wife is a very conservative lady, but I was in Iowa and I met some of her less than conservative cousins, and the one guy comes out to me and he was like, "Hey, Thaddeus, I tattooed your name on my ass." And I said, "You did? Like, that's pretty, my name's pretty unique. Do you even know what it is? And he's like, "Yeah, it's Thaddeus." And I was like, "You tattooed Thaddeus on your ass?" And he's like, "No, I tattooed your name on my ass." And he literally did. He had a buddy of his that was going into becoming a tattooist or whatever, and tattooed "your" on one cheek and "name" on another cheek. I was like, why would you do that?
Did he lose a bet?
No.
What?
No, I don't
Last
know.
place finish
if he lost a bet,
fantasy football.
Last place finish
shoot.
gets your name tattooed on my ass.
So we've got a couple more minutes here. Let me shift real quick. I had taken it out, but I said we'd talk about it. Caitlin Clark, she's getting fouled really hard in her rookie year. Kind of I think the WNBA, they didn't officially come out, but I think the kind of the optics that they were trying to say is, hey, this is almost like your rookie initiation, right? You're going to get hammered. Last I checked, it was something like 17% of all hard fouls in the WNBA last year, her rookie year, were initiated against Caitlin Clark. Now, in full disclosure, Caitlin Clark has done many of her own hard fouls too. Sure. So I just don't think it's that much. But this year, it seems like you can't say the rookie thing's going on anymore. She's still getting hammered. What do you think's going on?
Well, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but almost single-handedly, she's changing the WNBA for forever.
Yeah.
Like when I talk to my wife about basketball, because that's a passion of mine, I think of my kids and I'm like, if my daughter grows up and wants to play basketball, like who am I gonna set as a role model for her? It's Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Like my daughter's not gonna be tall, so she's got to freaking have handles and she's got to be able to shoot the dang ball.
Yeah.
And so, like if she models her game after Caitlin Clark, she'll be fine. In my opinion.
No.
But she's a polarizing person, right? And when you have such a strong, polarity, you're gonna draw a whole lot of stuff.
Like, what's polarizing about her? I mean, I have my ideas, but what do you guys?
Well, so aside from polarizing, it's in my opinion, I can't she's done so much for WNBA, but so much for women's sports, I think in general, right? And part of what I think why this still happens to her now is because I think there's probably a large swath of female athletes who've either gone through WNBA or just really been big ambassadors of it. And it's never really got the traction, I think, that everyone had hoped for until now. And so I think it's not so much a rookie thing, but I think sometimes she's taking this punishment because she's getting so much credit. And maybe that's the polarizing thing about it. I feel like all the stuff I see when she talks I think she's pretty open to hey, I'm just here to play the game, just trying to do what I can do. I think the polarizing thing is that I think just where she is now, she's getting so much credit. She's one of the first athletes to get I think a big deal, doing shoe deal and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think a lot of other people are really kind of bent that they helped build this thing and they are literally giving her the vast majority of the credit for it.
Mm-hmm. It seems so weird too because I see with her, I know there's racial overtones. I don't know if I buy into that or not with the whole thing. And then I think there's probably some sexual orientation overtones and stuff like that. I've read about it, and we're not going to get too much into that. But I do see a lot of parallels between what she's doing and what Michael Jordan did. And to me, it's almost jealousy. It's like Michael Jordan comes in, changes the NBA. I mean, quite frankly, changed the NBA, totally. Changed Nike, really made mega money for the first time. I mean, there were guys making good money, and I think there was some jealousy about that. Instead of being appreciative and saying, hey, this is what you've done for our group, they instead get a little bit jealous because they see all the money. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if the same thing's going on here. They know they should appreciate what she's doing I mean, I'll be honest, I don't watch the WNBA, but if Caitlin's on, I'm watching because I want to see if there's going to be some drama. I want to see if she gets a hard foul. And I love how she plays. Your point about your daughter, I love that. She's like the Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm. Well, but didn't she,
right?
Wasn't that a big thing about her going through rec, high school, college, stuff like that? She always played in men's leagues. For when she was younger, she played in men's leagues and stuff like that because that's where all the talent was.
Yeah.
And so she she's crazy good.
And she's physical.
Yeah.
I think she's that's the other part too. I don't think it's as nefarious as the media is making it out to be. I think she's a very, very physical player. Mm-hmm. She's like a Larry Bird. I know I keep making all these, I'm a sexist because I keep taking it back to men, but she's super physical. I've played basketball all my life. I just played in the tournament this weekend, and I'm a very physical player, and it makes me think that I think that's how she is. And the response is physicality.
Especially
down there. It's a war when you're in the box. And
well, what
that's
is
where she's getting hammered.
that her teammate that's now suddenly got a ton of spotlight? The blonde gal that it's been all over like social media. There's one of their last games. There was really hard fouls, and then the girl came down like layup, and Caitlin Clark's teammate full on just like bear hugged her and like kind of like threw her to the ground. Yeah, and it was a big thing, and she she now has like 2 million like followers on Instagram,
really?
all this type of stuff, and she's kind of been hailed as this because Caitlin Clark's getting so much physicality and hard fouls. So they're like she's being hailed as like the Caitlin Clark protector now. Yeah, and I wish I knew her name, but that's like a whole other thing.
I know. I remember hearing about Caitlin's foul on Angel Reese. This has probably been a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And when I heard about it and I read about it, I thought, gosh, man, they got to give this girl a break. I mean, now not only is she getting flagrant fouls, fouled against her, but then now she goes and she's, matching the intensity, and so she's getting a flagrant foul. But then I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, that's a flagrant foul. Like she hammered the crap out of Angel Reese, and I was like, I get it, like, and that's why I think it's a lot of it's physicality. I hope it's not about a whole bunch of racism and people think she's the Great White Hope or something for WNBA. I hope we're past that, but maybe there's part of that too. Last thing here, we got just a couple more minutes. We talked a little bit at the beginning here, or I did anyway. I want to turn it over to you guys. Fireworks, they're coming up. 4th of July is Friday, just days away. You guys doing fireworks or not?
Take it away, man.
So we still have like little kids, so we don't go too crazy with fireworks, but it is fun to light off some of the like colorful ones that stay on the ground. We live next to a very large abandoned school yard.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
Lots of dry grass.
Yeah.
So we always make sure to have
It's not good. I thought you were going to say lots of pavement, but you're right. You do have a lot of grass too.
We keep a 5-gallon bucket on hand, full at all times, just in case. So
gotcha. That's smart. That's a good safety tip.
Yeah.
Tell me your craziest fireworks story all time.
Just your typical young boys out with bottle rockets, having bottle rocket wars. That not the brightest moment, but
good news is you sit here with both of your eyes.
Yeah.
So you didn't poke your eye out. That's great.
We're still here.
Miles, how about you?
We're not huge firework people, mainly because I just I think it's just insane how much they cost. They get so expensive, and
I agree.
But I'm also very fortunate. We have a neighbor right across the street who's retired vet, and is very close to his family. Like, in fact, he has 3 boys who have all served in one branch of the military or another. Awesome. But they love the 4th of July, and they come over, and they're also very responsible. Take all the safety precautions. But they literally will just put on a show, so we get to go sit out comfortably in our driveway.
So tell folks, what are those safety precautions?
Yeah, so the big 5-gallon water bucket obviously is nice. Always have the hose nearby. Some of the other ones you jotted down that I wanted to touch on, thought was really important, was never light fireworks while impaired. That's because the 4th of July is a week, especially this 4th of July coming up. It's on Friday.
Yeah, good point.
It's a long weekend. A lot of people are going to let loose a little bit, and they'll want to enjoy themselves. And that's where I think you're going to make some mistakes. Your judgment's impaired. You're going to go out there thinking maybe you're far enough away, or you'll think something's funnier than it's supposed to be, and do some bottle rocket stuff, right? Things like that. So, and myself, as a beer drinker, I know how that can happen. Be safe out. Don't do anything while you're impaired. That's the biggest no-no. Never let children light fireworks, right? Talk about being dads. Having little ones, things like that. My older one is now 11, almost 12. he's getting that age where he's like, "Oh, I wanna go out," and I'm like, just be real careful when we're doing things like that. So, and also the dud situation. You light a firework, doesn't go off, don't try and light it again.
Yep.
That's you're gonna make a big mistake. You're gonna wake up.
That's how you lose a finger, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's not on this list, but one of the other things I think is important too is don't light old fireworks. And I just learned this by personal experience last year. We found a bag of old, and I don't even know how old, which makes it even dumber that I did this. But I went out and we lit it up, and then the fuse kind of ran for a bit and then stopped. So we all waited for a bit, and we're like, oh, that's older. And then my 14-year-old son and I started walking towards it, and it blew up like a bomb. Jeez. And it just shot shrapnel all over. Somehow it missed TJ and I, but it absolutely tattooed my mother-in-law, smacked her right on the forehead, which is kind of funny now because it didn't do any serious damage, but it left a mark. And it was huge. And just right away I realized, like, man, we got lucky. But that could have started a fire, all sorts of stuff. I'll also say this too, like really pay attention to, especially because we're in a drought. And Miles and I were just talking about this when we were walking over here. Is like, just read an article that Utah's entered the monsoon season, which is really weird to me because I'm about to go to India where they truly have a monsoon season. Yeah. Ours apparently is a dry monsoon because we're still not getting any rain, but it's really dry. And just remember that. Also check with your city to make sure that you can even light fireworks. And I know that sucks, but we checked just the other day. My wife got on and I was like, hey, are we even able to light fireworks? And we looked, and sure enough, in our section of South Weber, it's an absolute prohibition. Yeah. And there's some hefty fines out there. There are some cities that will hit you with about a $1,500 fine if they drive around and they see you lighting fireworks off and you're in a fully restricted zone. Yep. So there's just no wiggle room on that. So pay attention, make sure you know.
Pay attention to the weather. That's another big one too. Yeah. Like you may not, it's not raining. It's, that's great. But if it's windy, what you don't want is that firework goes up and whatever. And it's still hot and the wind blows it. Before you know it, it can be landing somewhere else. And there's so much dry vegetation stuff around us.
It just goes up.
Yeah, real quick.
So quick. Yeah, and again, to kind of round this out and bring it full circle, we started with the term accident. It's the same thing here. Nobody, I don't think, there are some people that intentionally start fires. That's that crazy nut that just did it up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But for the most part, when it's with fireworks, nobody is intending to burn anything, to cause harm. That's where it's accidental. But you got to realize those accidents are a consequence of intentional decisions. People that are lighting off fireworks when they shouldn't, or they're too old, or they're doing it in a dangerous manner, or they're drinking while they're lighting them off. And those intentional decisions lead to consequences that nobody wanted, but they happen. And hopefully nothing happens to any of you folks out there, but if it does, give us a call. That's something we help with as well. And that's kind of it now. We're out of time. I want to thank Miles and Brandon. Thanks, guys, for being here. That was super fun getting to know you guys a little bit more through this and just hearing some of your insights, so we appreciate that. I do want to just real quick stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to have a couple of lawyers join us, one from Arizona. It's not good. It's going to be one lawyer from Arizona, and then our director of operations who's out of Virginia is going to be here, and they're going to be telling us about some interesting, I don't know what the topics will be yet, but we'll get on it. And let's see here. What we will be covering though are more entertainment, sport, and legal topics. I want to thank you guys again for joining us on Beyond the Bar. And if you want more insights on how law, medicine, and modern life intersect, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay safe, stay smart, and don't believe everything you see on TikTok.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Love it.